The phone buzzed on my desk. I glanced at the screen and froze. After 8 long years of silence, my father was calling. A mix of hope and anxiety washed over me as I answered. I never expected his first words to be so cold. "No, hello, no, how are you?" Just a demanding statement that left me stunned. "You will pay for your stepbrother Tyler college tuition," he said matter-of-factly as if ordering coffee. The audacity took my breath away. Trailed before I tell you how I responded to this outrageous demand. Let me know where you are watching from, and hit that subscribe button to hear more real-life stories like this one. I had a pretty normal childhood until I was 13. Growing up in suburban Pennsylvania, my older brother Jackson and I were inseparable despite being 2 years apart. We shared a bedroom with bunk beds in our modest 3-bedroom house. Jackson always took the top bunk, claiming it was his right as the older brother, but I never really minded. Our dad, Frank, was a mechanical engineer at a local manufacturing company, while our mom, Diane, taught 3rd grade at the elementary school just down the street from our house. Those early years were filled with weekend camping trips to the Pocono Mountains, where Dad taught us how to set up tents, and Mom showed us which berries were safe to eat. Every Sunday night we had a family dinner tradition where everyone took turns sharing the best part of their week. Jackson usually talked about his science experiments or basketball games, while I often shared stories about my adventures with my best friend Marcus, or the books I was reading. Our backyard was where Jackson and I spent most of our free time building forts out of old wooden planks, or playing catch until the sun went down. Dad had built us a treehouse in the big oak tree, and we pretended it was everything from a pirate ship to a space station. Mom would call us in for dinner, her voice carrying across the yard as the streetlights came on. School came naturally to both of us. Jackson excelled in science and math, while I found my groove in English and history. Our parents never pressured us about grades, but always encouraged us to do our best. They came to every school event, science fair and sports game, cheering us on from the sidelines or audience. I still remember the proud look on Dad's face when I won the 6th grade spelling bee, or how he high-fived Jackson after his science project took first place. Everything changed when Mom was diagnosed with breast cancer when I was 13 and Jackson was 15. The disease progressed rapidly despite the treatments. Hospital visits became our new normal. Jackson and I would sit in uncomfortable chairs doing homework while Mom received chemotherapy. Even with tubes attached to her arms and a hospital gown drowning her increasingly thin frame, she always asked about our days and helped with tricky homework problems. As Mom's condition worsened, Dad promised us he would always be there. I still remember his words as we sat in the hospital cafeteria one night. "No matter what happens," he said, his eyes red from crying, "I will always protect you boys. You are my world, and nothing will ever change that." Jackson and I nodded solemnly, not fully understanding the weight of the moment, but sensing its importance. The night before she passed, Mom called us to her bedside one by one. When it was my turn, she held my hand with surprising strength. "Chauncey," she whispered, "take care of your brother and let him take care of you. Promise me you will always stay connected no matter what life throws at you." I promised through my tears, not knowing how prophetic her words would be. After Mom died, the 3 of us became a team in our grief. Jackson and I stepped up around the house learning to do laundry and cook simple meals. Dad worked longer hours, but always made it home for dinner, even if it was just takeout eaten in front of the television. We rarely talked about Mom, but her presence lingered in the house through photos on the walls and her gardening gloves still hanging by the back door. 2 years after Mom's death, Dad started dating again. Jackson and I encouraged it, genuinely wanting him to find happiness. We knew Mom would have wanted that too. When he introduced us to Amanda, a marketing executive he had met through work, we tried our best to be welcoming. She was tall, with perfectly styled blonde hair, and always wore designer clothes that looked out of place in our modest home. Amanda had a son named Tyler who was 16, at the time a year older than me, but in the same grade because he had been held back. Our first meeting was awkward but cordial. Tyler seemed preoccupied with his phone, but managed a few disinterested responses to our questions. Jackson and I exchanged glances but said nothing. We were determined to make this work for Dad's sake. The early days of Dad's relationship with Amanda showed promise. He smiled more, started wearing nicer clothes, and even took cooking classes to impress her. Jackson and I made efforts too, asking Tyler about his interests and inviting him to join our video game sessions. Sometimes he would join us, and for brief moments it felt like we could become some version of a blended family. I remember one evening when the five of us played board games and Dad laughed so hard he spilled his drink. It gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, our family could heal and grow. Everything shifted when Dad married Amanda after a year of dating. The ceremony was small, held in Amanda's lavish backyard garden in the wealthy part of town. Jackson, 17 at the time, and I, 15, served as groomsmen in matching blue suits that felt stiff and unfamiliar. I remember watching Dad's face as he said his vows, searching for signs of the father I knew, wondering if he was thinking about Mom at all. After the wedding, we moved into Amanda's sprawling 5-bedroom house in Oakwood Estates, an upscale neighborhood about 30 minutes from our old home. My brother and I each got our own bedroom for the first time, but somehow I missed our shared space. The house felt cold with its marble countertops and white carpets that we were constantly afraid of staining. Tyler's behavior changed almost immediately after we moved in. The polite disinterest transformed into open contempt. He made comments about our clothes being cheap or from last season. He complained loudly when Jackson and I watched our favorite shows on the living room television. When I tried to use the gaming console in the basement recreation room, Tyler would appear and claim he had already made plans to use it with his friends. What hurt the most was watching Dad's transformation. The man who had never missed one of Jackson's basketball games suddenly had important business dinners during championships. He forgot about my debate tournament entirely, even though I had reminded him at breakfast that morning. Meanwhile, he never missed any of Tyler's lacrosse matches, proudly wearing the team colors and cheering from the sidelines like he used to do for us. Money became another clear indicator of where we stood in the new family hierarchy. When Tyler wanted the latest gaming computer that cost $3,000, Dad bought it without hesitation. When Jackson needed $500 for a science competition registration, Dad said we needed to be more careful with money in these expensive times. Tyler got a car for his 17th birthday, a sleek silver Audi that he parked carelessly in the driveway. When Jackson turned 18 and asked about help buying a used car for college, Dad suggested he take the bus. Family decisions that used to include everyone now happened behind closed doors. Amanda would pull Dad into their bedroom for private conversations, and he would emerge with new rules or plans that clearly came from her. Weekend trips were planned to places Tyler wanted to go. Family meals featured dishes Tyler preferred, despite my mild allergy to shellfish that was suddenly not important enough to accommodate. I tried talking to Dad about how I felt excluded in our new family. We were sitting in his home office, a room I rarely entered anymore. "Dad," I said carefully, "I feel like things have changed between us since you married Amanda. Do you still have time for me and Jackson?" He barely looked up from his computer. "Chauncey," he sighed, "you are being too sensitive. Blending families takes time. You need to make more effort with Tyler and Amanda." I left the room feeling even more isolated than before. Jackson and I started to notice Amanda making comments to Dad when she thought we could not hear. "Those boys of yours need to learn some manners," she would say. Or Tyler never leaves his dirty dishes in the sink like Jackson does. Small criticisms that individually seemed petty but collectively painted a picture of us as unwelcome intruders in their perfect life. The rules in the house were clearly different for Tyler than for us. He could come home past midnight without consequences, while Jackson had an 11 p.m. curfew, despite being older. Tyler friends could raid the refrigerator and leave messes in the living room. But when my friend Marcus came over, Amanda hovered nearby, watching our every move. These double standards became more apparent and more frustrating with each passing week. The tension in our blended family continued to escalate over the next year. One afternoon I came home from school to find my bedroom door open. Inside, Tyler was going through my drawers. When I confronted him, he shrugged nonchalantly. "Just looking for my charger," he said, even though his room was on the opposite side of the house, and he had never lent me anything. A week later, I discovered the small wooden box containing keepsakes from my mother had been disturbed. The delicate silver bracelet she had worn daily was missing, along with a handwritten letter she had left for my high school graduation. When I confronted Tyler, he denied knowing anything about it. I told Dad, who dismissed my concerns. "Are you sure you did not misplace them? Maybe you should be more organized with your things." The verbal jabs from Dad became more frequent and cutting. During dinner one night, Tyler mentioned getting a B- on a math test, and Dad congratulated him profusely. When I shared that I had gotten straight, as on my report card, Dad barely acknowledged it before adding, "Your brother has always found academics easier. Tyler has other strengths." The comparison stung, especially since I knew Tyler rarely studied while I stayed up late reviewing notes. Jackson was hit hardest by the deteriorating home environment. My once confident, outgoing brother became withdrawn and quiet. I would find him sitting alone in his room staring at the wall instead of working on the science projects he once loved. One night I heard muffled sobs through our shared bathroom. I knocked gently before entering to find him hunched over on the edge of his bed. "I do not know who I am anymore in this house, Chauncey," he confessed, wiping his eyes quickly as if embarrassed. "It is like Dad has forgotten we exist unless he needs to point out something we did wrong." I sat beside him, not knowing what to say but understanding exactly how he felt. We were becoming ghosts in our own home. The situation reached a breaking point when Jackson received his college acceptance letters. He had applied to several engineering programs and was accepted to Pennsylvania State University with a partial scholarship that would cover about half the tuition. He needed financial help for the remaining amount, and approached Dad with the acceptance letter in hand, excited to share the good news. I stood in the hallway listening as Jackson explained the scholarship and asked about the college fund Mom and Dad had started for us when we were born. Dad's response left both of us stunned. "That money is no longer available," he said flatly. "It had to be used for other things. Business investments with Amanda Company. You will need to figure out another way." Later that night, Jackson discovered paperwork in Dad's office, showing that Mom had left a specific education trust for both of us in her will. The documents revealed Dad had liquidated the account shortly after marrying Amanda. When Jackson confronted Dad with this information, a massive argument erupted. "I cannot believe you would go through my private papers," Dad shouted, completely ignoring the actual issue. "Those were meant for us." Jackson fired back, his voice breaking. "Mom wanted to make sure we could go to college, even if she was not here to see it. How could you take that from us?" Dad's face reddened. "I do not have to explain my financial decisions to my teenage sons. This house, these opportunities, everything costs money. Sacrifices had to be made." "By sacrifices, you mean us," Jackson said quietly. "You sacrificed us." The turning point came 3 months before my senior year of high school. Amanda burst into the living room where Dad was watching television, her face contorted with rage. "My sapphire earrings are missing from my jewelry box," she announced. "I know one of your sons took them. They were in there yesterday and now they are gone." Dad immediately turned to me, suspicion clouding his eyes. "Chauncey, did you take Amanda earrings?" The accusation hit me like a physical blow. No, I would never steal anything. I had not even been in their bedroom. Jackson stepped in, defending me. "This is ridiculous. Chauncey would never steal." "Have you asked Tyler where he was yesterday?" Amanda's face hardened. "How dare you accuse my son without any evidence? Tyler would never do such a thing." The argument escalated until everyone was shouting. Through a stroke of luck, I discovered the truth 2 days later. I overheard Tyler on the phone with a friend bragging about pawning some sapphire earrings for cash to buy concert tickets. I recorded the conversation and brought it to Dad, certain that finally he would see the truth. Instead, he accused me of manipulating the recording or taking things out of context. When I persisted, he grounded me for 2 weeks for disrespecting Tyler and Amanda. The message was clear: Tyler was untouchable, and we were always going to be the problem. The final breaking point came during a sweltering August afternoon. Jackson was away at a pre-college orientation weekend, leaving me alone in the house with Tyler. Dad and Amanda had gone to a couple's retreat at a nearby spa resort. I was in the kitchen making a sandwich when Tyler sauntered in, already in a foul mood after losing an online game. He bumped into me deliberately, causing my glass of water to spill across the counter and onto my phone. When I protested, he shoved me hard against the refrigerator. "What are you going to do about it?" he taunted, getting in my face. Call Daddy. Oh, wait. He does not care what happens to you. Something inside me snapped after months of taking his abuse. I shoved him back, not hard, just enough to create some space between us. Tyler's expression darkened as he grabbed the front of my shirt and slammed me into the wall. Pain shot through my shoulder and head as he pulled back his fist. The front door opened just then, and Jackson walked in, having returned early from his orientation. He took in the scene in an instant and rushed forward, pulling Tyler off me. "Stop it," he shouted, placing himself between us. "What is wrong with you?" Tyler swung wildly, catching Jackson in the jaw. What followed was a brief but intense scuffle as Jackson defended himself, eventually restraining Tyler against the counter. "Let me go!" Tyler screamed, his face red with fury. Unbeknownst to us, Amanda had forgotten something and returned to the house alone. She walked in during the tail end of the altercation, immediately pulling out her phone and recording. But she started filming only after Tyler was restrained, missing the initial attack completely. "Stop it!" she shrieked. "Get off my son!" That evening, when Dad returned, he was presented with a carefully edited narrative. Amanda showed him the video clip of Jackson restraining Tyler, conveniently missing the beginning of the confrontation. I tried desperately to explain what had really happened, showing the bruise forming on my shoulder. But Dad would not even look at it. "I have had enough of your jealousy and troublemaking," Dad said, his voice unnervingly calm. His eyes, once warm and understanding, now looked at us like we were strangers. The next words he spoke shattered whatever was left of our relationship. "I do not recognize you boys anymore. Your mother would be ashamed of what you have become." Jackson stepped forward, his usual composure cracking. "Do not bring Mom into this. She would be heartbroken to see how you have abandoned us for your new family." That was when Dad exploded. "I have given you everything. A roof over your heads, food, clothes. And all you do is cause problems and make Amanda and Tyler feel unwelcome in their own home." "Their home," I repeated quietly. "Not ours. Never ours." Dad looked at me, then at Jackson, something resolute and terrible settling over his features. "Perhaps it is time you both found somewhere else to live then." The room fell silent. Even Amanda looked surprised, though she quickly masked it. Jackson and I stared at Dad, waiting for him to take it back, to realize what he was saying. He did not. "I want you both out of this house tonight," he continued. "You are old enough to make your own way. Jackson, you are 19. And Chauncey, you are 17, old enough to follow your brother. I cannot have this toxic behavior in my household anymore." "Dad, please," I began, tears welling in my eyes. But he cut me off with a raised hand. "Tyler is the only one who shows me any respect," he said, words that cut deeper than any physical pain ever could. "He is the son I wish you both had been." Amanda put a comforting hand on Dad's shoulder, her expression one of mock sympathy. "I think this is for the best," she agreed. "The boys clearly need to learn some independence and gratitude." We were given 2 hours to pack our belongings. Most of the furniture stayed since it belonged to the house. I took my clothes, books, laptop, and the few remaining mementos of my mother that had survived Tyler invasions. Jackson loaded his old Honda Civic with as much as it could hold. The rest we left behind, including childhood photographs and trophies, science fair ribbons, and the custom bookshelf Dad had built for my 10th birthday. The rain started as we pulled out of the driveway. Through the downpour, I could see Dad and Amanda standing in the doorway, Tyler slightly behind them, with an expression I could not quite read. Triumph, regret. It did not matter. The door closed before we reached the end of the street. That first night we slept in Jackson's car in the parking lot of a 24-hour grocery store. I curled up in the reclined passenger seat while Jackson tried to get comfortable in the back. Neither of us spoke much. The shock was still too raw, the betrayal too complete. In the darkness of that car, with rain drumming on the roof, I broke down completely. "Why, Jackson?" I sobbed. "Why does he hate us? What did we do wrong?" Jackson reached forward from the back seat and squeezed my shoulder. "Nothing, Chauncey. We did nothing wrong. This is on him, not us. He made a choice, and it was not us." "I am scared," I admitted, feeling younger than my 17 years. "I know," Jackson replied, his own voice thick with emotion. "But I promise you this, I will never abandon you. We are going to get through this together no matter what. Mom made me promise to look after you, and that is exactly what I am going to do." That night, huddled in a car that smelled of fast food and desperation, Jackson and I made a pact. We would build a new life without our father. We would succeed despite him, not because of him. And we would never, ever treat family the way he had treated us. The months that followed our expulsion from home were some of the toughest of our lives. Jackson immediately put his college plans on hold, taking 2 jobs instead, one at an auto repair shop during the day and delivering pizzas at night. I continued attending my high school, now commuting from the tiny 1-bedroom apartment we managed to rent in a shabby part of town. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor of a building with frequent water issues and noisy neighbors. The elevator worked only sporadically, meaning we often climbed several flights of stairs carrying groceries or laundry. The furniture consisted of a second-hand futon, a wobbly table with mismatched chairs, and a dresser we found on the curb. Jackson slept on the futon while I took the bedroom because he insisted I needed the private space for studying. Money was perpetually tight. I got a part-time job at a coffee shop called The Daily Grind, working weekends and after school. Between shifts, I would study at one of the back tables, nursing a single cup of coffee for hours. Sometimes dinner was whatever pastries were left unsold at closing time. We learned to stretch a pack of ramen noodles into something resembling a proper meal by adding whatever vegetables were on sale that week. Our situation might have remained desperate if not for several people who stepped into our lives when we needed help most. My English teacher, Mrs. Patterson, noticed my grades slipping and the dark circles under my eyes. After class one day, she gently asked if everything was okay at home. Something in her kind expression broke through my determination to handle everything alone, and I found myself telling her everything. Through Mrs. Patterson, I connected with the school counselor, who helped me access resources for students in independent living situations. This included a special program that provided breakfast and lunch at school, at no cost, lifting one financial burden from our shoulders. My best friend Marcus and his parents were another lifeline. When they learned about our situation, they were outraged at my father. Mrs. Miller, a warm woman who had always treated me like another son, insisted I stay with them during my final semester of high school. Though I was reluctant to leave Jackson alone, he practically pushed me out the door, knowing it would give me a stable environment to finish school strong. Perhaps the most unexpected support came from Sarah, the owner of the Daily Grind. A former foster child herself, she recognized the signs of a teenager trying to adult too quickly. She increased my hours when we needed extra money and decreased them during finals week. Sometimes she would send me home with grocery bags filled with real food, pretending they were about to expire and would otherwise be thrown away, though I suspect she bought them specifically for us. Despite our circumstances, both Jackson and I were determined to build something from the wreckage of our former lives. Jackson applied to community college planning to complete basic courses at a fraction of the cost before transferring to a 4-year university. He sought out every scholarship and grant available